Hello and welcome to 20 Lore Pro. I'm SirAshtown, and joining with me today is Kindle, aka NOIMNOT, off of his big win over at Star City Games Convention in Tampa, Florida. He won two 1K tournaments. NOIMNOT, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to hear from you again and to kind of catch up. We've seen you here on the channel several times and gotten to hang out with you personally at some of the Lorcana challenges and at Charlie's Collectibles show. So great to see you again here online and to talk about another great showing that you had at Star City Games.
Yeah, it was a fun weekend. Like you said, I won the Friday and Sunday 1K. I did also top 8 the 2K on Saturday. I lost to Blurple in the top 8. Other than that, it was a fun weekend. Got to play a lot of Lorcana back to back. Fun trip. Got to see a bunch of friends and stuff.
I heard from quite a few people, and this caused a little bit of a stir on X or Twitter, a Blurple player kind of coming into the top. That deck has been kind of a rogue this season, and then seeing, I would say, a great showing at a 1K, going to the top 8 like that and getting that win over you. You did beat it later on, though, in another tournament, is that right?
Yep, so I believe he lost in the top 4 of the 2K, but I played him again in top 8 on Sunday in a different tournament. So he also topped 2 tournaments.
Wow.
Yeah, I think Blurple got a lot of new tools this set, and so just putting a little more like on the map. Is it completely like top tier competitive? I don't think it's quite there yet, but it is definitely a deck that Ruby Amethyst at least can kind of struggle with sometimes, just because they are playing like they're going way over the top of you. Really, like with my current iteration, it was really only like be prepared to deal with that stuff. And a lot of times they've already gotten value out of that character anyways.
Yeah, scary deck to think about, but like you're saying, still not quite there. It takes, I would say, a well-tuned list and a great pilot to then also not get hit by great draws from other deck lists to do well. But maybe we'll see it at Vegas.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if like 1 or 2, I mean day 2 in Vegas for sure. I think you'll see it in some numbers. It's not going to be the majority of the meta, but some number of pilots will play it. There's a couple of good pilots that's their play style, that's what they want to play, and they probably could have a good chance of making day 2.
Talking about Vegas, that's coming up here pretty soon. What are your plans going forward with Set 5 in this competitive Lorcana scene?
Well, so far in Set 5, it's felt that Ruby Amethyst is still a viable strategy, so I'll probably still be playing it. If we ever get to a point in a set where it's finally done, it's outlived its stay in the meta or whatever, then I'll probably switch off of it for sure. But yeah, I think it's a pretty good pick, safe pick for Vegas. One of the main concerns always is like, obviously, I think it's clear that Ruby Amethyst is a strong deck in a best of 3 setting. So the one thing you are worried about is getting a bunch of 2-0s in the 2-game format. That hasn't stopped Ruby Amethyst from day 2ing before, and day 2 as well, like we know, is best of 3. So as long as you're able to pick up your 2-0s that you can in day 1, then yeah, you should feel pretty good going into day 2.
For those players who are out there that are piloting Ruby Amethyst, you've been doing it for a long time. You do coaching for it, and we'd say that you're one of the best Ruby Amethyst players out there. I think that's pretty well established within the community. But what advice could you give to some of the competitors who, like you said, are worried about playing it in day 1, making sure that they get 2-0s, winning when they're not on the play? Is there any advice that you may have for those types of players out there?
Yeah, so I would just say, like, build your list to be consistent across both games on the play or the draw. For you to play Ruby Amethyst against people, you're not necessarily even trying to read a meta or an expected meta. A lot of times Ruby Amethyst, you're just playing because you know you can pilot it well. Generally, you just feel like you can outplay or outvalue your opponent. So Ruby Amethyst is a deck that can win against everything and lose against everything. Yeah, I would just say play well, make sure you're sequencing well, and mulliganing accordingly based off of the matchup for sure.
Yeah, I think especially like knowing your matchup and knowing how your outs and your deck plays into them is super important. And Ruby Amethyst, like you're saying, you have a game strategy, you kind of know what you're trying to do. How does that play against a different list or the different lists out there? Those are important lines to know.
And one small tip too about the 2-game format. Not a lot of people have asked this, However, I've heard it a couple times. So I prefer to go first in the first game, like if I win the die roll. The reason for that is like I think that there's, a typical mulligan strategy that we have. We obviously have a hand that we can try to alter or mulligan sculpt for against a general strategy against most decks. And then I like to use game 2 to obviously have the information being on the draw, but being able to use whatever matchup I'm against, like use that information to alter your hand accordingly.
It's really, I think, solid advice. And I'm kind of the same camp as you. I like to go first if I have the option. Mine is more psychological. If I get the win going on the play, I feel a little better going into game 2.
Yeah, it's definitely so. Like the pressure of getting 2-0'd is off of your back for sure. However, I mean, yeah, you still need to get 2-0s, so you still should win. But at least like in the back of your head, okay, well, at worst, I guess this is a draw.
Kendall, with the Set 5 season and how everything's been in the past, could you talk to us a little bit about how you have been doing it in competitive Lorcana, just for those at home who haven't gotten to hear about Kendall, aka NOIMNOT?
I mean, yeah, so just in Set 5, there hasn't been too much. I guess it's been out for a little over a month now. But a few weeks after the release, like we had Toronto, which was Set 4 meta, with Bucky changes. The side events were Set 5, though. I was not at Toronto, but so some people got to play some Set 5 there. The weekend after Toronto was the CCS, Charlie's Collectible Show 10K. I made top 4 of that tournament. I think there was about 186 players. I lost in top 4 to Red Blue. Still a pretty good finish. And then the following weekend, which was this past weekend for me, was Star City Games Tampa. And they had the 1K on Friday, 2K Saturday, 1K Sunday. I topped all 3 of those tournaments and I won 2 of them. Again, I think Ruby Amethyst, just my cup of tea or something. So I'm just happy to play it for now.
I like the list. It's definitely from Set 1 to Set 2. Obviously, there was going to be changes, but the deck transformed into something completely different from what it was in Set 1 to 2. And we've really seen some of the same package. We have the bounce package. We've added some stuff. I think it's Set 3. We got the frenemy. So there have been some cards that have affected the deck as a whole. Any major changes that you've seen, though, from the deck from Set 5 that you think was a game changer for it? Or has it mainly stayed essentially the same core that we've seen?
No, I guess that's the surprising thing, right? So like the new list that I've currently been playing, the only new card from Set 5 has been the library. And that is it. Every single other card is a different card from like Set 4. This looks like a Set 4 Ruby Amethyst deck with 2 libraries in it. You might have made like, a couple different things. Like there's no inclusion of the Maleficent Sorceress, the 3 cost anymore. But yeah, I think that's like the biggest surprise. This is probably the set that's given us the least amount of upgrades. But I wouldn't even say like upgrades, they're like side grades. Like the library isn't a staple. It's done well for me. It's just what I'm currently choosing to play. However, I've seen people, play the 5-cost Elsa as well. And I think that's a reasonable choice. But yeah, pretty much it's the same deck. I think we talked about it before, but like the Mim Merlin package takes up the majority of your deck anyways. Once you add the 4 cost of the animal package with Mims and Merlins or 4 of each, the playsets, and Flynn Rider, like there's a lot of spots taken up in the deck. Kind of just builds its own at this point. And I think there's typically just like a few flex slots in here that I would suggest, right? I think the 2 crabs can be negotiable. The 2 libraries, again, at least 1 Medusa, and also the 8-cost Sisu as well is probably a flex slot too. So about 6 slots, right? So as long as we're playing like the 55, 54 cards and not affecting the core of the deck, you can kind of play around with those slots to tailor it to like your expected metagame or cards you prefer to play. One change I made for the Sunday tournament was taking out a Medusa for a Lady Tremaine to help against the Sapphire decks, and it worked out pretty well.
That's something that I was kind of interested to hear. Was we are missing some cards that we saw a lot of play in the last, I'd say, Set 4 format. I mean, those Diablo decks were running around rampantly, and so that changes the format with the discard package being there. But we don't see King Undisputed, we don't see the Lady Tremaines anymore. Where have those cards kind of gone? Do you think that it just doesn't have a place right now, that you don't need the King Undisputed anymore, or the extra Lady Tremaines that we typically see with Madame Medusa at the same time?
Yeah, so early when the set first came out, I think the deck that was like on a lot of people's radar was Amethyst Amber Hyper Aggro. So typically like Lady Tremaine and Bee King Undisputed, they're really slow in that matchup. They're not good cards. The other matchup being Amber Steel, which is really popular even still. I think Amber Steel probably the most popular deck in this set so far. Again, Tremaine and Bee King Undisputed aren't great in those matchups either. So people first started cutting those cards out just to be like more linear, able to answer decks that were more low to the ground, and you were still favored against the Sapphire decks even without these cards. Now, once you start adding Tremaine and Bee King Undisputed back into the deck, your win percentage against a Sapphire deck goes up quite a bit. So really, again, it's like trying to just predict expected metagames and stuff like that. I think Amber Steel holds the majority of that. Bee King and Tremaine, not the greatest against them. I think the other change too, with the inclusion of some of the Emerald decks, any Emerald deck now, we know they're not playing Bucky. Well, they shouldn't be. Amber Emerald and Amethyst Emerald, both of those decks play Ursula too, and they're more likely going to be playing Ursula on turn 2 now, rather than playing the Bucky, obviously. That makes songs like Bee King a little less valuable. Those decks typically don't have good targets for Bee King anyways, because they have a wider board of a bunch of smaller characters. They don't mind sacrificing an Ursula or a little Diablo or, you know, a small Clarabelle. They don't mind sacrificing these things. You spending your whole turn to get them to sacrifice their 1-drop is not where you want to be at in a format.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense for those changes, like you said. And you not playing as many songs, I mean, you're playing Frenzy on the other side, and you're still playing Be Prepared, which are staples to the list. But it makes less targets for Ursula to hit. And there's times when that could get played and you don't have any of those in your hand. And so it really just didn't help, besides giving information to your opponent on what you have in hand to play.
Yeah, the game plan against most Emerald decks is to just try to blink the Ursula on 2. The less songs you play, the better for that. Also, like I said, just their typical strategy of flooding the board with a bunch of small characters, them sacrificing one of those is not that impactful, you know. The sacrifice effects are better against the Sapphire decks when they're playing like one big threat a turn.
Something I was really interested in was the library. You know, we were just talking about how one of the new inclusions from Set 5. How big of an impact have you seen it have on your list being here at 2? Have you thought about increasing it, or do you think that where it's at is like perfectly where it needs to be?
I think 2 is like the most I would play. 1 to 2. 0 to 2, I would say, because again, I think it is like a flex slot. It's just in the tournaments I've played, it's worked out really well for me, so I'm happy where it's at right now as a 2 of. I don't think I would go like play many more. I like it into the Ruby Sapphire match and also the mirror match. That's where I was mostly curious to play it, was definitely in the mirror. But it did give me a lot of value in like against Blurple, Ruby Sapphire, Blue Steel. I think those are like matchups where I'm mostly looking to play it. I wouldn't say it's not a game changer. It's not really great into Amber Steel or Hyper Aggro, Green Purple as well. It did come into play against my Green Purple opponents though.
For those at home who really haven't had a chance or an opportunity to be exposed to a Ruby Amethyst list, could you give us a broad overview of the deck strategy and the gameplay that's trying to accomplish?
Yeah, so overall, Ruby Amethyst is trying to outvalue your opponent with a lot of premium card draw. So we have some like the bounce package is like one of the best engines in the game, I would say, because it offers you card advantage and also like incremental lore gain. So whenever you're in dire needs of cards, you can play Merlin Rabbit, and we can always bounce that for additional cards. You know, Rabbit at worst is worth 2 cards because it comes into play, and whenever it's banished, you'll draw a card as well. Whenever you bounce the Rabbit, you know, it's worth 2 more additional cards eventually. The same thing goes for Goat as well, Merlin Goat. So once you have, you know, out-resourced your opponent, they've run out of cards, you're ready to like win the game, apply some lore pressure. Like now we can start winning the game by bouncing Merlin Goat, just gaining 2 lore each time. Typically, like your best starts against most decks are playing a 1-drop, whether that's Chernobog's Followers or Magic Broom. Then you want to follow up with Flynn Rider and then playing the 3-cost Sisu. And with Flynn Rider and the 3-cost Sisu, you have a really high chance of triggering the Flynn Rider to gain 3 lore. And sometimes games, your Flynn Rider can gain anywhere anywhere from like 3 to 9 lore in some matchups, which is backbreaking for a lot of people, as well as the 3-cost Sisu, quest for 2 as well. So really, like, the overall strategy in a nutshell is draw a bunch of cards and use all of your red removal. So using Brawl, Be Prepared, Medusa, and Maui. We're using all these removal spells, controlling the board that way. And yeah, eventually you're just going to out-resource your opponent. Your backup plan, one of the game plans that you can always fall back on, is getting Queen's Castle onto the board and just following that up with a bunch of Be Prepareds and winning the game like that. If you get multiple castles in play, they have to put some characters in play to try to combat the castle, and then you just Be Prepared them a couple times. And typically that's pretty good. That's good enough to win a game.
Yeah, I think for people at home who haven't played this deck, it's nice because you kind of know if you don't know what you're playing against and you're on the play. I'd love to see my Flynn Frenemy package into Sisu and kind of have some game lines that you know to play. But it also is very strong and it can pivot pretty quickly, especially when you're drawing so much off of your bounce packages. And so even if you didn't get the start you wanted against one type of list, this deck can be pretty forgiving with allowing you to draw so much to get back into it.
Yeah, and Be Prepared's another good card that's like kind of quote-unquote forgiving, right? It can always just reset the board state, like reset the game, essentially wipe the board if you're ever falling behind. A lot of times too, like, again, if you don't have any characters in play and they have multiple characters, like now you're looking like 3 for 1 or 4 for 1 or something like that off of a Be Prepared typically is enough to like get you back into the game.
Well, thank you so much, Kendall, for giving us an overview of your deck list that you took to the Star City Games convention in Tampa. Could you talk to us a little bit about the event itself and how the 1K, 2K, and the other 1K went? That's a lot of tournaments to play in one weekend. What was the competition like, and what was your overall experience?
Friday was the 1K, and it was about like 46 players, I think. So a 6-round tournament with a cut to top 8. I went 4-0 and I drew twice into the top 8 there. That tournament was great because it started at noon. I didn't have to wake up that early. However, the tournament did end pretty late. On top of having to get dinner and get back to the house and everything, the Saturday tournament, the 2K, started at 9 a.m. So you had to like wake up pretty early, go there. The Saturday 2K was 68 people or so. It was just over 7 rounds. But yeah, I went 5-1-1. Yeah, lost in top 8 to Blurple. Something interesting to note was the last round that I won to make top 8 of the tournament was against the green-purple opponent that I had beat in the top 8 of the Friday tournament. So it was kind of like a rematch again, and I was able to win again to secure top 8 for that tournament. Unfortunately, I lost to Blurple. I think I finished in the 5th seed, so I was on the draw. He was a great player. That matchup does feel a little play draw, as well as, I already knew like a weakness in my deck was mostly the blue decks. Like I still was a little favored against the blue decks, but not having Tremaine or B-King again, if you're not able to have an aggressive start, once they start dropping, big bombs on you, it can be hard to like come back from. Yeah, the one change I made was cutting a Medusa for 1 Tremaine, and I ran it back same list on Sunday. Sunday was a little smaller, because typically people are heading home and stuff like that. Sunday was, I think it was 31 players. It was just under enough. Like we almost had enough for 6 rounds, but it was only 5. I started 3-0. I intentionally drew the 4th round, and then I played the 5th round for seeding. I played a mirror match in the last round, and I won. I finished in first place, like first seed. And then the Blurple opponent that I lost in top 8 from the day before, they finished in 8th. So we played each other immediately again in that top 8.
Oh gosh.
And yeah, just the inclusion of 1 Tremaine along with being able to be on the play for hopefully 2 of the games. We went 2-1 in both sets. He won 2-1 on Saturday. I won 2-1 Sunday. But the Tremaine helped out tremendously in that match. And yeah, Sunday I think top 4 I played against Blue-Red, and then the finals I played against Blue-Red as well. Overall, Star City Games is or SCG Con. They're fun events to go to, especially when they're a little local to you. I had to take a short flight here. It was great to see people that I knew just from the Lorcana space. Like RMB, DeCandio, Brennan DeCandio, and a lot of other people. And even I think Frank Karsten made his way out there too. So our Saturday tournament was really stacked as far as top DLC competitors and really good people, you know. And then it's also cool. I always just enjoy meeting people, you know, that might know me through social media or something. I haven't met them before, but yeah, they're always just a good time, just to play a bunch of card games and hang out.
That's awesome. That's really cool to hear. The social aspect of competitive play is a lot of fun to be a part of, and just Lorcana in general has a good social, I think, aspect that some TCGs, I would say from the start, haven't had this way that Lorcana has.
Yeah, I've definitely enjoyed being a part of the Lorcana community, meeting new people, teaching new players, and yeah, I'm just excited to see, I guess, where the game continues to go. I've definitely had a blast playing it so far, and look forward to continue on next year as well.
Well, talking a little bit about teaching, you do some coaching. If there's anyone who's watching the video today and they'd like to receive a coaching session from you, where could they find out more information about that?
The best way to reach out to me, I guess, is my Twitter, which is actual NOIMNOT. And from there, in my description, like in my profile description, there's a Google document that has a bunch of information as far as coaching goes, probably answers most general questions. And there is also a link to our team website, which is the main way to book me for coaching.
That's great to hear, and I'll make sure that we have those links in the description below. Talking about your team Labyrinth that you're a member of, how are things going over there at Team Labyrinth? And kind of interested to hear how many of y'all right now are qualified for Continentals. And I know everyone who isn't is trying to go to a Disney Lorcana challenge, whether it be Vegas or Seattle. But what are the numbers kind of looking like there, and how's it been like testing with the team?
Yeah, currently we have at least 4. There might be 5 qualified for Continentals. Definitely we have, you know, some of our other players still going to Vegas and Seattle to try to secure an invite for Continentals. But other than that, I mean, the team's been great for, you know, in our own team chats, like having just, you know, general chats about anything. It's not, sometimes it's not even about Lorcana or whatever, just having like that sort of camaraderie is great, but also they're great testing partners. Yeah, hopefully we can all be qualified. That's like the dream scenario, but yeah, they're trying again, like Vegas and Seattle. And I think, you know, they did mention there will be other ways to qualify. I think people are maybe thinking that there will be last chance qualifiers right before Continentals at the site. So that could be another way as well.
Wow, that's pretty exciting. And, you know, I'm cheering for some of your members like Logan and Humble, you know, cheering them on. We really hope that some of them are able to qualify, and if not, the last chance qualifiers, whatever they may look like and be, maybe they can get qualified there. And just for anyone at home, it's really fun, especially to play Lorcana but trading card games as a hobby and as an outlet, but also to play as a team. It's fun to have a group of friends, whether or not you call yourself a team or not, but just to hang out with and have good banter and good fun. It can be also fun to lose, and it can be great to win. So I'm glad that to hear that you guys have that aspect and that y'all have been seeing a lot of success with your team members. That really shows the high caliber of playing skill that y'all have, and hopefully we might see some of y'all represent going into Worlds. You know, I know that's probably a big goal, but something that we'll be cheering for y'all for.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely love to qualify for Worlds. I'd love to see some of my teammates qualify for Worlds. That's like, I guess that's the goal, right? That's the carrot on the stick or whatever that's been put in front of us. As far as Lorcana goes, this seems to be the highest level of gameplay that you can reach, would be competing in Worlds next year. So I hope to do well in Continentals as well.
Well, no, before we sign off for today, anything that you want to say to the 20 Lore Pro community or the Lorcana community at large?
The 20 Lore Discord is a great resource. I always suggest like the 20 Lore Discord is a place to join because it's a great resource, especially, you know, depending on any deck that you want to play, like having a deck thread where people are active in it. You know, that's one thing that, you know, the Ruby Amethyst thread in 20 Lore is helpful. You know, I give my thoughts and opinions in there. Yeah, I don't know. It's been a great experience so far. Yeah, even outside of 20 Lore, just Lorcana community in general.
Really appreciate you, Kendall. And if y'all are at home and you haven't heard of Team Labyrinth, they're on YouTube. We're going to have their link in the description below. They've got some really great videos out there, like the Lab Rats, where they do versus matches on different color pairings and really great content that they're making out there. So if you're looking for another content creator to watch, Team Labyrinth is a great place to start, as well as seeking some coaching from Kendall. We'll have those links in the description. Thank you so much, Kendall, for joining us today. Hope to hear from you from the future and to possibly see you when we're over there in the Continental.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.